Allroad TDI. A lot has happened since the last video. Well, obviously the engine is in. Not much to document in that regard. It's got the allroad aluminum subframe brackets. It's got the TDI motor mounts and all that. O1E mounts, all that's all original. I also moved over all this insulation from the donor Passat. Most of it fit properly, a couple of small differences, but figured what the heck, if I can fit it, why not? Here are those fuel lines that I moved over. As you can see, they go in here into the correct spots. I'm going to be changing all these clamps because I don't like these rusty clamps. The old all-road brake booster hose went through here, and on the through here. On the Passat it comes through this side here, but it's all all original parts, or from one car or the other. No changes there. Intercooler bracket. The all-road had two intercooler brackets riveted to this inner fender support here on this side, and on the right side of the car onto this support there. You can still see some paint dripping out of the holes where I just kind of just touched it up where the rivets were so that it doesn't rust. But anyways, the bracket that you see here is the Passat intercooler bracket. It's just been slightly modified. As a matter of fact, I added a little support to the back of the bracket here that you see with the nut on it. But besides that, it's all the original bracket. The wiring, this plastic bracket that supports the wiring harnesses, same spot as the 2.7T, so it all sits underneath this main run here. Here's our plug for the bottom of the coolant reservoir. All good there. Here's the power steering line from the Passat installed. As you can see, it runs underneath and over to the rack back here. But no difference. I mean, it's a different hose, but no different how it hooks up. The AC lines here, these are the Passat lines, Passat receiver dryer. It did sit on an angle as well on the Passat, but it all fits properly here. The front end here is all, pretty much all everything you see here is Passat original items. Now we'll go on to the part that was the absolute hardest so far in the swap. Here it is, the most difficult part of the swap for me anyways, is the modifying the rad support and then attaching to it the intercooler crossover pipe that you see across the bottom there. So we'll go around to the other side. From the back side here, you can see this is a Passat cross member with the integrated intercooler pipe, which required me to cut basically a slot along the bottom of the all-road rad support. Several things have to change because the all-road is unique in that it has some spacers on the subframe to lower the whole engine, which is part of how it gets its additional ground clearance. Everything sits a bit lower, so I cut this off. This is the snub mount on the TDI. It was sitting above. You can actually see when I originally cut the slot in this subframe, in this rad support, I cut this up here. So this piece was sitting an inch higher, so I cut that off and moved it down. Also, you can see this hole here in this corner. On the Passat, there was a tow hook welded to the to this cross pipe. As you can see, the all-road has this pipe welded right to the rail, so I had to modify the Passat's bracket slash pipe. Looking around at the front here, basically that pipe that's welded to the rail on the all-road comes through this here. So there was a little hook here on the Passat which I cut off. Then I had this I sandblasted it, POR'd it. Another one of the biggest difference here is the rad on the Passat is about, as you can see here, rad's about 2 inches shorter. So and after having cut off this slot, I had nothing for the rad to sit on. The old all-road radiator, these little rubber supports sat in here. You can still sort of see where the hole was down in here. So basically I took a couple pieces of I think it was about 1-inch ID or slightly, maybe 7/8 ID pipe, welded them to this intercooler pipe in the correct location, and then now the little spacers sit right in there. That's both on the left or the right side and the left side. And so the top of the rad sits in the same spots using the same mounts. But everything's moved up. The AC condenser you see on here, this is the factory all-road AC condenser. So it fits the same way on the Passat rad and on the TDI rad as it did on the engine or on the gasoline engine. It does, I just came to find out just a few minutes ago, it does sit a bit higher overall. These brackets, the placement of these brackets is about a 1/2 inch higher than it was on the gasoline engine's rad, which basically for this after run fan, or this, it kind of changed where it sits. So I had to change the angle of this bracket just because the whole thing sits a bit higher. I'm gonna still pull this off when I got the engine back, or when I got this back in the car, so I can paint it properly so it doesn't rust. What else? Yeah, another thing which is unique again to the all-road is the way the bumper shocks sit in here is a bit lower, so I had to elongate these holes down a bit so that the bumper shocks will fit properly. And because I cut this big slot in the bottom or across this whole rad support, I didn't have a way to seal, or the rad would no longer be sealed against the back of the support. And that's important. A lot of people may overlook this, but it's important that the rad that the rad fans pull as much air through the rad as possible. Looking at the back side here, you can see what I did. I took this, it's a gray plastic that I had here, basically trimmed it all to fit all the way along from one side to the other, and then screwed it in place. And now the bottom of the rad, there's little rubber here, sits perfectly on it. So that, along with the rubber along the sides here, the foam, and this separator here kind of seals the rad. So basically all the air that the fan is pulling is forced to go through the rad, not through slots all around it. So I could have left it wide open under there, but at least now I know if it ever overheats, it's not because of a lack of airflow from the fans. So that's that. Everything else back here, there's a bit of trimming I did here. You can see some marks I made which were not necessary, but I trimmed a bit of the plastic here for the bigger intercooler end tanks. A little bit of trim under here as well. That's all good to go. On the 2.7Ts, the lower rad hose came in on this side of the rad, as was the rad fan switches. But on the Passat 4-cylinder TDIs, both the lower and upper rad hose are on the driver's or left side of the car. So I moved this all over here. And again, with as picky as I am, I wanted to keep everything looking OE. As you can see, I also pulled through. This is the AC compressor clutch positive wire, which again on V6s, it's on the left side of the car. On the 4-cylinder TDI, it's on the right side. I pulled that through the original harness loom just to keep it looking close to OE as possible, and I'll obviously have the OE type protection. I don't have to worry about having that cheap split loom. But anyways, yeah, so this is all over here. I've got this loose so I can get the exact length of wire here for the plugs. I don't have anything extra, nothing, no chance of it hitting the mechanical viscous coupling fan. You see a couple of, there are a couple cushion clamps on the bottom here. I'll go around the front and show what that's for. So yeah, these cushion clamps are here just to keep the bottom of the rad support somewhat, structurally sound. After I cut the big slot across it, this whole bottom piece was very loose, and I still intend to run the factory all-road belly pan, and I didn't want this flopping around. So this just seemed, these are stainless steel because everything I do is stainless steel. These just seem to work really well for supporting this now loose little center or bottom part of the rad support. So one here, one here. This pipe is nice and strong, and that won't go anywhere. So apart from that, this thing is ready to go in, and I'm hoping actually to get it running today. I've got the ECU flashed. Thank you to Mirza. And yeah, this should be good to go. And I'll post another video when I get it going. Thanks.